Hey everybody, it's Ruby here today, and I thought that I would do a slightly different video where I wanted to do a recommendation of a TV series that I've been watching lately, which is Battlestar Galactica. But first I wanted to address a couple of administrative things. First of all, as you can see behind me, this is an empty bookcase. This is also probably an example of why I would never be able to make YouTube into a living, which is that I don't seem to have any sort of planning capabilities when it comes to background or planning. My dad recently bought a house. We'll be moving into it next month, so part of that is packing, and part of the grander scheme of things is that we have more books than anything else in the house, so we have been packing up our bookcases, and this means packing up my to-be-read list. So I apologize for the bad background. You'll have to deal with it for the next couple of videos, and then I will be hopefully trying to change up the background, maybe filming in a different location, or maybe filming in front of a white wall as everything is taken down from our house. The second thing is something that I didn't mention in the last video, which is that I was recently recognized going to class last week, which I thought was pretty cool. It's something that I didn't expect in the city that I'm living in, just because there's less of a demographic for booktubers, I guess, where I live, I think. And also it isn't as like big or as metropolitan or international as a couple of the other sort of bigger cities in the sort of like the western area of the world. But it was still pretty cool nonetheless. So that's really awesome, and I hope to see you on campus again. And just to mention to any future people that might see me while they're on vacation or in my home city, if I seem disgruntled or offish or odd, it's probably just because I didn't expect it, and also because I'm a fairly shy person. I still want to talk to you. We obviously have a common interest, but yeah, just keep that in mind. So as for Battlestar Galactica, this is a television show that I'm pretty sure most people have watched. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the last people on the earth to have seen this. It had at least a cult following, if not more, when it was aired from 2005 to 2009. And a friend of mine recommended it to me because he thought that it was up my alley for the kind of science fiction that I like, and he was right, because I finished all 4 seasons in a month. Anyways, so I just wanted to recommend it for anybody who might not have seen it yet, or maybe doesn't know if they want to watch it or not, and just comment down below if you have seen it, whether or not you liked it, that sort of thing. It was, this is a reimagined version of the previous Battlestar Galactica series that was published or put out in 1977 and created by Glenn Larson, who actually incorporated some Mormon ideology in it. But most of what I'm going to summarize and talk about is going to be for the new series, because I understand that although the premise and a lot of the characters were the same, the general plot of it and also where the Cylons came from is different as far as I can tell. So the general premise of this show is that the 12 colonies that people are living on, so these 12 different planets, is under attack by Cylons, which is a robotic race of people, and the only survivors of this attack is anybody who was on a ship during the incident. So colonial fleet or civilian vessels or that sort of thing. And so the main aim of the show is that now that they're on the ship, with the inability to go back to their home planet because the Cylons are on it, they had to try and find another place to colonize. And so there's this prophecy that, or general myth, I guess, in the culture, that there's this 13th colony called Earth, and that you'll be able to find it. An interesting element of this show as well is that in the original series, the Cylons were all robots. They were all metal robots. While in this new series, they look exactly like humans. They're played by human characters. The only difference between them is that once you look down to what they're actually made of, everything is synthetic. So they can blend into a crowd, they can be part of a crew, but once you actually like look down to their DNA, they'll be different. This makes it so that the whole plot is about an invisible enemy, and I think there were some elements of like sleeper agents with like terrorism in World War I and stuff like that, but the general sort of idea is that anybody could be your enemy. So they're having to deal with these people who could potentially be in their crew, who could have lived with them for 5 or 10 years, who are actually Cylons, either knowingly or not knowingly. Which makes it a little bit more complex in the themes that are being dealt with, because instead of like a dichotomy between like Cylons and humans, you have the sort of integration of them. So a question that comes up a lot that I found really cool was the concept of human nature. They call Cylons toasters, which is kind of hilarious, and people who look like humans that are Cylons called skin jobs. Which I think is a reference to Total Recall. But because there's sleeper agents and people in the crew that are Cylons, once they're found out, of course everybody goes apeshit, because you have someone who nuked your planet only to find out that another version of them is on your ship is like understandably upsetting. But at the same time, those people that are on the ship are also the people that you shared close quarters with or ate with. So there's a whole element of human nature. Like, are they always Cylons? Can they be human because they're so human that they can pass for human? Like, what is the difference? Another thing too, which brings in sort of like this Mormon ideology, is that because there's a prophecy to get to Earth, there's a lot of religious elements involved. So there's like there's two different religions going on. The Cylon religion is more monotheistic, while the human religion is, I think, based off of the Greek gods. But they tend to overlap in a lot of how they think, and of course there's a lot of elements of the prophecy and what roles you play in destiny and that sort of thing. And the really cool thing that I liked about it is that what they did in the show is they didn't make the show religious, they just made certain elements of it into sort of religion, because a lot of the characters on it are from the military or they're scientists, and so they're understandably skeptical about what is going on. And that sort of takes the place of the audience, which is super cool. So not that like religion is good or bad in TV shows, just that I think that it's really cool that they're able to blend TV, or they're able to blend religion and science and technology together. And that was something that I had mentioned with the Golden Compass as well, that I found so interesting, is that in a way, like, science is just another way of trying to understand why we're here, and understand how things work. So it's almost like another version of religion, right? So those elements created a really cool like sort of interaction of elements together, a lot of like philosophy and psychology. So I did really like this sort of science fiction. And another thing that I think is really important just with television shows is the variety of characters that you get to experience, and of course the variety of settings. So those elements created a really cool like sort of interaction of elements together, a lot of like philosophy and psychology. So I did really like this sort of science fiction. And another thing that I think is really important just with television shows is the variety of characters that you get to experience, and of course the variety of settings. There was a high percentage of female characters. Some of the female characters in this actually replaced some of the male characters from the previous series, and I think they did it really well. There wasn't a lot of like stereotypical roles, I guess. One of the best Viper pilots is a woman. She kind of plays a Han Solo character. So, and the president of the colonies is also female. It's sort of like the ability to integrate like female characters without like drawing too much attention to the fact that they're female. And there was also a gay couple in it, but that I think garnered some controversy because the gay couple wasn't actually part of the main series. It was part of webisodes that were published in between some of the episodes. So it wasn't like a mainstream plotline. It was just sort of in the sidelines. But I think the director or writer said that it also wasn't a major deal for the plot. So they didn't want to have to introduce it just because they were gay. But that's to your own discretion. You can decide if that's true or not. This sort of breadth of characters allowed me to pick and choose who I liked and follow various plot lines that I liked, and created sort of a diverse cast of people who were very different from each other. The friend of mine who also recommended this TV show said that one of the things he liked about it as well is that none of the characters were admirable. So there were good and bad role models, but they didn't always make the best choices, which I think just adds some complexity and some sort of texture into the plots. So instead of a science fiction show that was based entirely on the technology that was being used, since there was some really cool fights still and glimpses on like their ships that they were on and their technology, it was still very much based on sort of human drama and how you're supposed to deal with living on a ship for how many years, and so there was like definitely like a lot that I took out of this. So that was my what I've been watching lately and my recommendation for the week. It is definitely something to watch, I would say, if you like some of my other recommendations of books that I've read. But don't watch it maybe if you have a midterm or final coming up, because if you do like it, you have so many episodes to watch. So like I said, comment down below if you've seen this show, if there's a reason why you did or didn't like it, if you remember what it was like when it first came out, because I don't actually remember it coming out at all, but I think I was a little bit too young for that, and anything else. So subscribe, like, do your thing, and I will talk to you guys later.